All right. Actually, when the organizer asked me to talk on this very important event, I have jokingly said that I was a bit reluctant for simple reasons, because I'm a big fan of Elon Musk. So maybe some of you know about the story, but Elon Musk is not a big fan of ESG, and also for a reason. So my talk will be about, very straightforward. It's also my reflection about these questions. Yeah, is ESG the answer to SDGs? So I try to reflect on these questions. But first of all, let me talk a little bit about Elon Musk. Okay. Okay. As you can see from the map, this map is this actually a representation of how we have progressed as human, that can make the world become more civilized and create civilization like this. Right? So we are all over the world, right? So what drives the civilizations? The civilization is driven by no other than vision and human ingenuity. That's what drives civilizations. And also by perseverance, bravery of having that we can have failures on every step. And that's what makes us human. And recently, it's everywhere. This picture is everywhere. So this is the very, very examples of how we can progress as humanity. The innovation technologies, yeah, this Webb Space Telescope that I know you are aware of because it's everywhere in the media, it's beyond the imaginations of even us in recent time. And one of the pioneer of those innovation is Elon Musk. Yeah. When I watch this video, I never stop having goosebumps. So I just want to share you a little bit. Sorry, can you hear this? The sound? Okay. So, Elon Musk's vision is going beyond Earth. He want to set up a foundation to be settling in other planet in Mars. And one of the obstacle of those is that it's very simple. If you go to Mars with the current technology, current rocket technology, it's like you drop there, then you cannot come back without someone pick you up. Okay, why? Because the rocket's only one way. You cannot return. Because the technology of the rocket before Elon Musk step in is you just one way. Just one way, you cannot return from Mars. And the only solution to that is to make a rocket that can give you a return flight. It's simple, but a very, very foundational. And he did it. It's a big milestone in human space travel. Okay? So that's how I perceive him in his effort to overcome this obstacle. And this is something, it's a big thing. Now I would like to return to some other that he did. Okay, I would like to, sorry. Okay, this is the poster films of around, I think in end of 1990s. The movie title, the commentary title is called "Who Killed the Electric Cars?" Who killed the electric cars? So this is a story that in 1996, actually electric cars begin to introduce in California. There are, I think, 6,000 of them. Yeah? So electric car is not recent technology, it's there already. Yeah? In 1996, 6,000 people use electric car, suddenly gone, disappear. And the reason, there are so many theories, but one of the very sensible theory is that it was killed by the oil giant, the oil giants at that time. So, but later on, there is a sequel to this movie. You should watch this, Revenge of the Electric Car. So it's a story of 4 individuals that actually revive the electric car industry, and one of them is Elon Musk. So why I'm so into this electric car? Because, well, it may not the complete solution to the global warming, because the electricity can come from coal. Yet, you know, it solved many of the local pollution in the cities, for example, that directly affected human health, noise, smoke, and everything. So it's a big thing that Elon Musk did to the environment. Okay, so but yet, if you see this, I think recently, when Exxon, for example, Exxon is the oil company, and Exxon is rated top 10 best in the world for environment, social, and ESG governance, ESG by S&P 500, Tesla didn't make the list. Okay, of course he was angry, and I'm for him. Yes, he said even ESG is a scam. It has been weaponized by for neo-social justice warriors. But what I'm more interesting for me is the other tweet that he did. It's a meme, yeah, that say that you can see it, right? What is an ESG score? He said that it determines how compliant your business is with the leftist agenda. Leftist agenda. He mentioned the word left. So he thought, or someone else thought, I don't know, he agreed with that, that ESG is part of the leftist agenda. That reminds me, well, I don't believe that, but that reminds me, and I think it should be remind everyone, but in all contexts of the narrative of any new initiative from anywhere, from any stakeholder, we have to understand the context that is beyond beyond ourselves. We have to understand the ideological context. We have to understand, the school of thought context in that. Okay, so the funny thing is, actually, ESG is not a leftist agenda. It's the other way around. Maybe the other way around. What is the opposite of left agenda? Well, you should sorry, yeah, this. I hope that you can listen to this, and make sure you can listen to this. So this is a documentary by, I think, CNBC, that tell you the story of the MSCI. MSCI is the biggest, I think, one of the biggest, I think, rating of ESG. And then let's hear from a little bit. Let's just a little bit.
He's a libertarian, and that he would like as little government intervention as possible, and wanted to ensure that the use of ESG would be one way in which he can stop any socialist ideas from creeping into capitalism at any cost.
This is a permanent change in the way...
This guy is the founder of MSCI.
And by the way, we're doing this to protect capitalism. Otherwise, government intervention is going to come, socialist ideas are going to come, and the like. So it's not against capitalism. It's about, dealing with the externalities that are created in capitalism.
Henry Fernandez was born in...
Okay. Yeah, so according to him, ESG is far away, far from a leftist agenda. It's the other way around. He wants minimal interventions of state, yeah, in this solving the world's problem. Self-regulations of private entities, self-regulation of corporations. So that's the opposite of the left agenda. And it is part of his background. And I think he is related to one school of thought in economics that mainly came from Chicago. It's called Chicago School. And one of the big figures in Chicago School of Thought is Professor Milton Friedman, who in 1970 actually said something already about CSR, corporate social responsibility. He said like this.
He's a liberal.
Sorry. I don't have this. He said that the social responsibility of a business is to increase profit. That's it. That's it. That's what he said. Well, it makes sense. It makes sense. Because the word is set in the system that if someone or company don't really adhere to this principle, he will be collapsing because other will take part of that. It's a competition. It does, but what about the other failure of the what about the SDGs, for example? Well, I will explain later. That's a state responsibility. So it's just sharing of the burden or the responsibility. Okay, so and come back to Elon Musk. The reason why Tesla is not performed in the ESG rating is because of the flaw in the measurement, how ESG is measured. This is the paper that I just found recently from the paper or Review of Finance. Yeah, that basically show if you do standard rating of companies, not ESG, normal rating of company, they are correlated with each other. That if you trust some rating, then the other rating will actually agree with that rating. But not the ESG rating. ESG rating correlation among each other is only 0.3 or something. So it really depends on what rating. So if there is inconsistency among SDG rating, then there is a problem with that, because investor can just simply, I won't pick that rating because that rating good for me, but not for us. And one of the main reasons is the aggregation problem, because so many things we want to measure, right? And you cannot aggregate things that you cannot think so. What is the most successful index in the world? HDI, Human Development Index. It's everywhere, from the local government to the UN institution that use HDI. What is the feature of the HDI that make it most popular? Simple. 3 indicators. 3 indicators. This AIC want to lump everything together, and then among the indicator is kind of perfect substitute. It means you can have a high SDG rating by simply doing nothing on the environment side, but doing other thing, for example, on the other side as maximum as possible. That's substitution, perfect substitution. That's not good. So if you look what Peter Drucker said, yeah, we should agree. We cannot manage what you cannot measure. Yet you have to understand too, not everything that can be counted count, and not everything that counts can be counted. So that's why in the research method we have mixed method, we have quantitative method, we have qualitative method, and so on. Okay. And this is what I told you about. In this world, we live under the rule of capitalism, whether you like it or not. Okay, whether you like it or not, only less than 1% of country is run by not other than capitalism, like these countries, for example. But everyone is under capitalism. This is called price system. Price system. Price system has a very simple algorithm. Very simple algorithm. If the price is high, it means it's a sign for us to allocate more to that activities. If the price is low, it means you take away your resources. That means we have to less allocate to that activity. But if there is no price, then don't allocate anything to that activity. So there is a very flaw here. Because many of things that matter to us, right, don't have price, don't have market price, cannot buy it in Alfamart. So how can you rely on a system like this that don't appreciate most things that we value? Because most things that we value, actually, there is no market price. So that's why you see this. That's why you see this. What is this? This is called Wagner's law. Wagner's law simply say that, if you see the horizontal axis, simply say that the richer you are, the more advanced you are, the more developed you are, the more educated as a consequence you are, okay? The share of the government in the economy is higher. Indonesia's share of the government in the economy is only less than 20%. We are a Pancasila country, okay? United States of America, the mother of capitalism, the size of its government is 40%, okay? So why this seems not to be consistent with this? Simply because all these developed countries, all these advanced countries understand that this capitalism need to be fixed by the state, not other by the state. Not other than by the state, okay? So, because they understand that price system or capitalism, one of the biggest failure is they are ignorant to justice. They ignorant to fairness, economic fairness. That's why they have inequality. People can be rich and people can be poor beyond their, because of the market system. And market system or capitalism doesn't agree with that. It is ignorant to that. That's one of the biggest failure of capitalism. And the second one is when it has a market power like monopoly, for example, yeah, it cannot self-perfecting itself. We have to regulate monopoly. We have to regulate imperfect market. We have to regulate non-competitive behavior. That's why in the US, in early decade of early 1990 something, they created what is called antitrust system to regulate market because they cannot perfecting market itself when they are imperfect. That's regulation. That's the biggest market power, right? That's the state, okay? And the last one is the market can create in the context of no existence of market, let's say public goods or externalities. Externality is the source of all of this environmental problem in the world. Externality is that the decisions of firms, actually, he has to pay something that they don't know where to pay. For example, when the textile company has to produce textile, they pollute to rivers, so there is a cost. Someone goes to hospital because of the polluted river. That money come out of their pocket. That's a cost. But that cost is not represented in their accounting. The price doesn't count it in their income statement. But there is a cost. So this is called externality and also public goods. So these three market failures should be solved not by the private sector, it's solved by the state. So if we talk about the ESG, actually the justice, the fairness, the unfairness, the inequality is actually the main element of social dimension of the ESG. The environmental problem, the environmental problem is the E part is because of externality. And one of the governance issues, for example, the anti-competitive behavior of firms and things like that, that is the imperfection of market. That's the G part of the ESG. All of these three, if you learn economics or public economics, you understand this is called market failure. The area where market fail. Well, if someone fail, so fail absolutely, would you ask them to fix it themselves? No. It's the failure, they cannot do. Okay, so, so what I mean is, private sector cannot self-regulate. State regulate. So that's why the MCI founder before, they want to self-regulate. No way, no way. There's no way someone that failed in something can fix themselves. Okay, so, and that's why in many countries that is already more advanced than us, they spend a lot of their money or spending on environmental protections. Let's say, this is the OECD country. It's around 1 to 2% of their GDP. 2% of the GDP they spend on environmental protection. That's the state's role. Indonesia, on the other hand, only 0.1%. I mean, Indonesia or many other ASEAN countries, Philippines, things like that, they don't have state capacity and effectiveness to do like this OECD country in regulating the environment. Now, I would like to argue that when you have a low state capacity and ineffectiveness of government in solving this environmental problem, the least that the last thing that you want to do is ask private sector to do that for you. No, that's suicide. Okay, so okay, I would like to take your attention to a few years back, Volkswagen Dieselgate scandal. Volkswagen, a big company. This is the biggest greenwashing that happened in Europe. So if you read later, if you're not aware of the story, is that Volkswagen produced a car, yeah, that is claimed to be very low emissions. The only thing is that the low emission, the NOx emission is low only when they are trying to be tested by the agency. In a normal running, it was 40 times than when it's tested. Okay, so it reduces emission only when they are tested. So smart, the computer in that car is so smart. It will reduce reduce a lot of their emission only during testing. It's a big scandal. This is a big example of greenwashing because they have motivation to do that in the system of capitalism. Greenwashing is like this. Another story, particularly the recent one, the DSW greenwashing rate. So this DSW recently made a misleading statement of its 2020 annual report surrounding claim that more than half of the group assets were invested using ESG criteria. That's a big lie. That's a big lie. Okay? And, well, it was investigated. It was featured in the Economist magazine also. So this is the type of tips of the iceberg. If anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. Yeah, if anything can go wrong, it will go wrong. It will go like this is just an example. Okay. Now, let me share to you one of my reading that I did a few days ago. This is from the forthcoming issues of the Review of Financial Studies. Review of Financial Studies is a journal ranked number 2 in accounting, okay, in the world, and then ranked number 7 in finance. So you should trust this. Okay. So the article is a report of a research on experimental investment. So the title is "Does Investor Care About Impact?" So I'm trying to look at the ESG from the supply side, from the people who want their money to be ESG. Okay, not from, because there are two sides story of the ESG. First is the investors, the suppliers, and then the other one is the fund managers, right? The implementers. So this is the story of the supply side. So what this researcher from my country did is they did real money experiments to 527 private investors and to 125 impact investors. They given real money. Okay, so these people then was assigned, or they were given money and they have to decide their investment. There are two kinds of investment. The first is the treatment 1 and the treatment 2. Treatment 1 is called high impact. Why it's called high impact? Because they can choose between Fund A and Fund B. Fund A is if there is no emission reduction from that investment, but Fund B is 5 tons of CO2 emission reductions. Okay? And then the treatment 2 is called low impact. Fund A is the same, so no emissions reductions, but Fund B have impact, but a very little impact, 0.5 ton CO2. Okay? And then also, between Fund A and Fund B, they also ask the respondent how much they're willing to pay to move from Fund A to Fund B. How much are they willing to pay? Okay? So that's the setting of the experiment. And this is the result. First, good news, that investors are willing to pay to have sustainable investment, willing to pay. They are willing to let go some profit, some potential, some profit from this investment if they want to move from Fund A to Fund B. They are willing to pay, So they have intentions, they're willing to pay. But the sad story is the amount of the willingness to pay is not dependent on the impact of the assessment, on the impact of the investment. So they don't care whether it's 5 ton or half ton. They don't care. The willingness to pay is the same. Okay? I tell you again, they willing to pay for sustainable investing, but they don't care. They don't care whether making high impact or making low impact. This is a big thing. This paper hasn't released before last week. So it means the Economist magazine has not quoted this. Okay. But if this is released earlier, I'm sure my Economist magazine will quote this paper. So this is a very clear evidence of what we call the warm glow effect. Warm glow effect. Warm glow effect is you want to help people. There are two things. You are the real altruist. Altruism. Altruism is you want to help humankind, you want to help people simply because you want to see these people happy. That's altruism. There's nothing related to himself, no. But warm glow, or the egoist altruist, is he help people because he feel good. He feel good when helping people. They don't care these people that he helped feel good or not. That's warm glow. And the ESG is prone to warm glow, according to this research. What is the implication? The implication is this is a breeding ground for incentive of the fund manager not to care about the impact because the owner of the money doesn't even care. Okay? So that's what happened. That's what happened. Okay? So this finding suggests that people, what is called pro-social investor, they are actually warm glow optimizer rather than consequentialists who optimize the impact of her investment. So they don't care it's making impact. Now, if you combine this warm glow from the supply side of the investor with the incentive of greenwashing from the perspective of the fund manager, then a recipe for disasters. Okay? So now let's come back to SDG. Okay? SDG, this is actually a transformation from MDG to SDG. They're strengthening several things. They're strengthening inequality or social justice by extending, by creating new goal like inequality, things like that, and expanding some aspects that are not really much relevant, not much really addressed in the MDGs, which is the environmental dimensions. So these environmental dimensions and social dimensions of the SDG that is strengthened from MDGs, I have the name for it in one word. It's called justice. So justice. Justice means the social dimension, the inequality, is justice from the perspective of intra-generation. intra-generation. Within the same generation, you have to do justice to other people, to the poor, to women. Okay? So that's intra-generational justice. When we talk about environmental pillar, we are talking also the same thing. We talk about justice, but intergenerational justice. So one word, SDG, is actually justice for me. Yeah, justice. So that's how SDG works. Now, is SDG the answer to that? Sorry, is ESG the answer to that? Well, let me highlight this. What is the three most challenging SDG, and what do you think? What do I think is the solutions? Okay, so there are many, but I can point three. First, climate change. What is the cause of the root cause? There are many causes of climate change, right? There are immediate cause, there are root cause, but the root cause, from my perspective, is actually global externalities, because country doesn't care. They pollute because the effect of the pollution shared by the whole globe, not by him only. That's externalities. It's a global externalities. That's market failure. What is the solution to market failure? Not corporation, states. It's global state corporation, or with many instruments like carbon taxing or carbon pricing, for example. That's states. Okay. What the other most challenging SDGs agenda? Inequality. More recently, it become more worsening. What is the source of the inequality? Market ignorance. I said to you earlier, it's the ignorance of market. This is a market failure, isn't it? Not the private sector failure. It's a market failure. It's a private sector failure. Yeah? So who was most responsible? States. How? Welfare states. Progressive taxations. Okay, subsidy. Okay, what are the third? Well, corruption, things like that. That's institutional quality. So what is the source of the problem? Rule of law. Law enforcement. Is that market role? No, it's not market role. It is state's role. So what should we do? Who is the most responsible? State. We have to strengthen the states in law enforcement. We have to create good democracy. Is that private sector responsibility? It's not in their nature. Okay, so SDG solutions is not meant to be given predominantly to corporation. That's my view. Okay, SDG solution is a public good. It's not private goods. So naturally, it is a market failure. Yeah? So it is state role and capacity that we should strengthen, especially when there is a crowding out. Especially if there is agenda from the corporation to minimize the state role, let's say by creating, by flourishing ESG. Okay? So, well, private sector can help, yeah? But without making meaningful impact, it's better not to do that, right? Because the meaningful impact should be done by law and regulation. Private sector can do, but has to be in the corridor of law and regulation. They have to abide the law. So we cannot let Indonesian private company to do ESG. So ESG or CSR inherently, yeah, is something that will be done by company beyond what is required by regulation, beyond what is required by law. So if there is a company that doing ESG and CSR, but they not even start thinking of abiding the law by regulation, that's not ESG, that's greenwashing. So they have to follow the rule first, they have to do ethical first before CSR. So you cannot do CSR and keep doing bad things. That's greenwashing. Yeah. So, and I'm not the only one to talk about this. Please don't be surprised. Read this Economist magazine last week. ESG is a broken idea. It's a special report. There are so many articles in that. So I ask you to read this. Maybe you can ask Bu Ersa to share the magazine because I said to her too. So what is the answer to the questions that I raised earlier in the slides? So is ESG the answer to SDG? So this is my answer. Okay. So when state capacity and effectiveness in correcting market failure is still low, like in developing country, in ASEAN, for example. And, okay, I have qualifier here, and ESG is still prone to warm glow and greenwashing, ESG is not the answer to SDGs. Okay, so let me highlight some points. This is the last slide that I want to hope to provoke you, in other discussion. So, okay, no shortcut to have a just world, no shortcut. Okay, it's a long road. Okay, and nothing, including ESG, can self-heal capitalism from many of its failure, from many of its caveats. No self-heal of capitalism from its failure is not self-regulation, not self-heal. No, somebody has to heal. He has to go to the doctor, and the doctor is the state. So one glow, that's from investor side, right? And greenwashing incentive, that's from fund manager side, are a perfect recipe for disasters in terms of SDGs. Okay? Well, I have to admit, ESG is well-intentioned. Yet there are many intentions in this world that coming out not really materialize to that intention. Okay? So ESG is well-intentioned, but not yet necessarily making meaningful impact in what it meant to be. Okay? Particularly in fixing the market failure. So market failure in ESG need to be fixed by the state through regulation, monitoring, changing fiscal incentive structures. That has been done for generations. Okay? So for example, the E part of ESG should be fixed with carbon pricing. That's government, right? Well, the private sector have to pay carbon, yes, but by the regulation. You have to pay, okay? Not voluntary. Okay? The social, the S part of the ESG, what is the solution? Social spending, social spending, welfare state, that state. The G part of governance, what should we do? Enhance rule of law, the state. Okay? So that's for me. But I have another message that I want to share it. And as an academy, we are academy. So there are more recent trend that private company contacting us to do all of this reporting. Be careful. Yeah? The least we can do as a company, academia, is not to be part of the greenwashing. I just want to remind my friends here or colleague. Okay, so that's end my talk. I hope I can provoke you, not to change your idea, but to be more into the debate. Yeah, to give you other sides of the story. So I think again, thank you, Ibu Ersa. Let's have more discussion. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Prof. Arif. Indeed, it's very provoking. When I invite Prof. Arif Ansori to become speaker, he